Welcome to episode 7 of the Acknowledge to Action podcast. I am your host, Matthew Benko. This is an all hands on deck episode titled Asvab. Chris Hernandez served 24 years in the Navy and retired as a Chief Petty Officer. Chris brings first-hand insight into the challenges and triumphs of life at sea during deployments. From enduring extended periods away from home port to seizing opportunities for personal and professional growth, Chris has navigated it all. Join us as we explore Chris's journey, or shall I say voyage, from finding moments of self-improvement during downtime to reflecting on pivotal experiences that have shaped his military career. Chris shares his perspectives on mentorship, leadership, and the importance of helping others along the way. Through his stories and wisdom, we'll uncover the transformative power of resilience, leadership, and continuous learning in the dynamic world of naval service. Thank you for tuning in to the Acknowledge to Action podcast, where we embrace the journey.
Yo, Chris, man, I am super excited today, man. We go way back. It's been a little bit since we connected, but man, I can't think of a better way for us to reconnect and, get this conversation going, man. I really appreciate you having you here on the Acknowledge to Action podcast. We connected a little bit through email and text, but man, I'm ready to kick this off. But welcome, Chris, man. It's been a while, and man, it's so good to see you, bro.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad that you extended the invitation to me, man. I really do appreciate it. It has been a long time, like, we were just chatting about, but I'm ready to get it done.
Nah, man, this is overdue. You know what I mean? I know over the years we had a few, like whether emails or texts or whatever, whatnot. But man, this is what kind of was great about this Acknowledge to Action piece, because it rekindles some relationships, and it also it initiates new ones, man. Yeah. So man, let's just kick it off, because I know we're going to talk about a lot. I mean, we're going to talk. I have a feeling we're going to talk about some of our, we were in high school together, we graduated together, and I think we went in the military like almost right around the same time, if not within a week. I don't know, but we're address that here shortly, man. But yeah, man, no, this is good stuff, man. So I give you a heads up as far as what Acknowledge to Action's all about. It's really to hear your journey, man, because you got an incredible one. I mean, you got 20 plus years, 24 years of service, I believe, if my number's right off the top of my head. Yep. So can you take us through your military journey from the moment you became involved with the military to where you are today? Now, highlight some key moments, challenges, and transformations along the way.
Wow. Well, it all started back when I told my mom.
We were.
Yeah, and there we were. I told my mom in school, I was like, yo, Mom, I'm going to, because I was going to Votech, and I was taking commercial art. So I was like, Moms, I'm going to what was called Allentown Business School. Allentown Business School. I don't know if you remember that place.
I do. Yeah.
I don't even know if it's still around. It's probably called something else now. But anyway, I told her, I was like, I'm going to Allentown Business School. I got some buddies from the class that's going there too. And she was like, hell no. Nope, you going straight to the military. So sure shit, man. She called a recruiter. Recruiter came to the crib. Next thing I know, she was like, oh, he seemed pretty nice. And I was like, oh, Lord. Here we go. So Mom's got to liking the recruiter. And I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, he was talking a good game. I went down to the office. I took the Asvab in school. Like, I'm sure 99% of the cats that took it in school were like, yo, I'm just getting out of class. So,
yep.
So you bust out that, you get that, you crack that 30 something on the Asvab, and it's like, yeah, man, I just took it to get out of, whatever, man. So they hit me like, when they took me down to the recruit station, they was like, you want to take this over? And I was like, no, I'm good. I want to take tests. I want to graduate high school and be done with, school. Because at that point, I just had enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, just to get into it, it was the summer of 97. I was set to go in August. So August came around. I was working at Dorney Park. That was my last job. And I ended up going to MEPS in Harrisburg? Yeah, Harrisburg, I think. If I'm not mistaken. I think it's in Harrisburg. But anyway,
Yeah.
I get to Harrisburg. I'm already freaking out. Like, I don't know why I did this. Like, I don't know why I'm here. I called my mom. I think it was from like the hotel phone, dude. Because, you know, cell phones, you had to be a baller back then to have a cell phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just rethinking my whole life at that damn hotel, man. Finally get up the next day, go to Maps. You know, everything's good to go. And I get on that bus to Great Lakes. Not the bus, it was a plane. To Great Lakes, Illinois. That's where Navy boot camp was at for me.
Okay.
And it was just, dude, I was not ready for that shit. You know, I'd been a part of sports teams and things like that where the coaches were, you know, trying to, you know, they try to motivate you in different ways, but this was just something different, man. Something that I was like, damn, my mom don't even talk to me like this. My dad never talked to me like this.
Yeah.
You know, so the experience was terrifying at first, but you know, all it took was a period, maybe 2 weeks. I was like, oh shit, this is whatever now. You know, they done shaved my head bald. I don't know if you remember, like I used to have hair, and now here I am, like Mr. Clean. But you know, after the haircut, I was done, man. And they grew back anyway. They let us grow it out. You know, for the first couple weeks, they were shaving that shit up. But after a while, you know, I think it was 8 weeks, if I recall. It was 8 weeks long. Graduated, went to my first command, which was the USS Whidbey Island in 1997. I was a Marine dock landing ship. So whenever we deployed, we took Marines with us.
Okay.
Oh, and that was another experience, man. It's like, damn, I met Marines because I had Marine cousins and stuff like that, but these jokers here, man, they a different animal. Marine Corps, different animal, man. You know, much love and respect to them, but Lord, it was some good times and it was some bad times with them boys, man. But anyway, I spent about 4.5 years on that ship. I did 2 deployments to the Mediterranean. You know, we went through the Red Sea and all that stuff, so we ended up on that side of the world for a while.
So after basic training, after Great Lakes, right? You did your thing, like it was like, you know, 7-8 weeks, whatever. And then what is it in the Navy when you go to your you know, in the Air Force, it's AFSC, you know, Army, Marines, MOS. Like, so what was your job? Like, what'd you do? Like, in MEPS, like, did you get what you asked for, or did you go an open general? To talk a little bit about that journey, how did you just show up and like, all right, just tell me what I'm going to do and I'll be trained to do it? Or was it like, no, it'd be cool if I could do this. And then you pursued that.
So when I went to select a job at MEPS, unfortunately, I didn't qualify for the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a hospital corpsman, which is, you know, considered a medical person. But don't say that. Please don't call a Navy person a medic. They'll lose their shit. They probably, you know, stab you with something, but
and then patch you up.
Yeah, they'll patch you up. I mean, they're gonna slice you right, but it's hilarious and it's not, man. They take their job seriously and they're good at what they do. But I wanted to do that, and then, you know, my recruiter was up there, and he was like, "Listen, man, you don't qualify for that right now. But when you get to your first command, which was my first ship, you know, you can apply for that job. Like, you do like an apprentice type thing."
Okay.
Where my department, so the thing that I had to pick was seaman apprenticeship training. So I was basically undesignated. I don't know if there's an equivalent thing for you guys like that, but I was undesignated. I didn't have a job, so I fell under this umbrella of, it was seaman, it was engineman, and and airmen. So airmen mainly worked on like carriers and those ships.
Okay.
And the the bases that had like the air stations that we have.
Yeah.
And then the firemen, they worked in the engineering department. and seaman work deck department. So I was under that umbrella of seamanship. So I can apply for a seamanship job. But I still, me not knowing any better, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So whatever. I get to the ship and they're like, dude, you got to do some time in this department before you actually can apply to, go to another department. So you have to still qualify on the Asvab for that. And you had to get
taking an ASVAB in between study halls, man. I'm telling you, we should have. Yeah. I did the same thing, taking it in 11th and 12th grade. Yeah, So okay, so you went in, like, I know in the Air Force it's like open general. It's like I don't know what I'm gonna get. Like I just show up and yeah. Okay, I got you.
Basically, that's what it was. So being on the ship, the time that I'm, I was doing some training. I was reading the ASVAB practice books that they told me to get if I wanted to do that. So I was really trying to get to this job.
Yeah.
And there was just a point where, I'm up for advancement now. I went from E1 to E3. Now I'm at the point where I got to take this advancement exam for E4.
Okay.
So at that point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take this test and then maybe I'll try to convert later on. So I was enjoying what I was doing, which was I ended up becoming a bosun's mate. Bosun's mate. I don't know if you're familiar with what they do.
Not real. I mean, I've heard of the term, but I'm curious to hear what exactly that they do and what you did.
Yeah. So basically, what bosun's mate do is, maintenance and upkeep of the ship. We do all the handling for whenever it's time to, come into port.
Yeah.
We're the ones out on deck handling the lines. We do we assist with navigation when it's time to pull into port or when we're out at sea, or during evolutions like underway replenishment when we got a helo coming on deck. They call special details. So,
oh wow,
mainly a lot of maintenance and stuff like that. Like when I was first in, I was driving the ship during these special operations, and so my department, entrusted me with that qualification to drive this ship. And when I say drive, like I was being told course to follow.
Got
so it. I'm literally, with the helm in my hand, the helm of the ship. I'm like, okay, coming to this course. So I'm driving like this 690 foot ship.
What? So as an E3, E4, you got your hands on the helm of where the ship needs to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a big responsibility.
And you were like 18, 19? Because we were the same age right around when we went in, right? So you were approximately, you weren't even 20 yet, right? So you were.
Nope.
Wow.
I was like 19 years old, man.
Yeah.
At that point, I had to work my way up to that. I had to get the qualifications. I had to get, I had to log a certain number of hours by myself or with someone, getting trained.
Yeah, so it wasn't like the captain of the ship was like, "Hey, you come over here."
Nah, that would have been crazy if he would have done it, because I was like, yo, I don't even have a license, man. I didn't have a driver's license at that time. So, when I got that qualification, I had somebody training me for a while, and I was there side by side with them, and then I had to get those hours with them kind of watching me.
Yeah.
So once they signed me off, it was like, all right, you on your own now, buddy. So it was terrifying at first, but it was nothing that I don't think anyone couldn't handle.
Yeah.
With the training and the practice, that's really what it was. But sometimes that shit was boring, man, because you up there for hours, and at first it was 2 of us. Then we qualified somebody else. It was 3 of us. And these evolutions last anywhere from, it could have been going through, like when we were going through the Suez Canal, we had to rotate. At first it was with 2 of us, and then we finally got somebody else qualified. And I'm talking about like 12-hour shifts.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, driving this big ass ship for 12 hours, it's like, oh my God. Then at nighttime, ain't no lights. So everything is dim. Like, you got a red light maybe. But if you're driving that ship,
Was it mostly OJT? Like, was it mostly OJT because of how you got into that? What is it called? NES? Like, what's it officially called in the Navy? NES? Your naval, what's the MOS called? Like, what is that classification? Is it a rating? Is it a boatman weight? It's like
the bosun mate
okay.
is a rating. Yeah, any specialty under that rating would be considered an NEC. So I got an NEC for driving a small boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a subcategory would be an NEC, but the actual job is a rating.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, the only NEC I was familiar was the Nintendo Entertainment Console. Man. I think I just made that up. I think because it's NES, but that just makes me think of that. But okay, so that's interesting because I'm always. It's interesting to hear how, because some individuals, as you know, and yours, I wasn't that person, and based on yours, it's like, look, man, this is something I need to do, and I'll figure it out along the way. So it's interesting how your initial experience was. You went from basic training, and then so you went right to your command from basic training, or was there a training base in between Great Lakes to your first your ship assignment, your first duty station?
Yeah, there was a 2-week training for us. So that was like my not my MOS. Like for somebody that was already designated, they would have had a longer school. But for me, since I was undesignated, they just gave me basic seamanship course, 2 weeks, put me on a plane, and now I'm at the ship. Like, hey, I'm here.
And where was the ship? Like, where's like the home? Again, I don't know the language a lot, but like, what's the home port? Like, what's the duty station when you're not deployed or it's not out at sea?
So the ship, when I met up with the ship, it was actually on its way back from a deployment from South America.
Okay.
So I was TAD to. I had to stay at the barracks for a couple weeks. I think like a month before the ship actually came back into home port, which was out there in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
So the ship was home ported in Virginia Beach / Norfolk because it was at the Joint Expeditionary Base in Norfolk / Virginia Beach.
I got you. All right, so that's where you are, and then so you got assigned to that ship, and then from there, I could only imagine some of those experiences you had. Like, where did that take you? Like, what you got there. I know you said your first couple deployments were to the Mediterranean, but talk us through a little bit about because I know when you hear like Air Force, Army, you get assigned to your station, you're on post or your base until you deploy, and then you come back, and it's pretty straightforward. Well, my understanding, my general understanding that it's not like that, especially if you're assigned to a ship. Like you're gone more often than not. I don't know. So you talk. I'm curious to hear about that.
So life on the ship, like prior to a deployment, we have to go through workups. So the ship has to get certified in so many things before it's deemed capable of deploying.
Got it. Okay.
So we got a deployment coming up in September. Well, I'll put it to you like this: 9/11, right? 9/11 happened. We were already scheduled to leave for deployment around that time. So we had to speed things up because 9/11 happened and it was like that old shit lamp went off and they were, we was on leave. I was on leave. I was at home getting ready to go on this deployment. So, but prior to all that, September, right? That shit happened in September. Prior to all that, we spent like months, not consecutively, but weeks at a time out of the year prior to that deployment, to get certified so that we could deploy.
Gotcha.
So, so if the training cycle started in March, so, we're gone all of March. We'll come back for like a week. We're gone 3 weeks in April. We come back for like 2 weeks, and then we're gone for all of May. And then we come back, and then we're hanging out for June. We don't go anywhere. And then we have one more certification or two more that we're hanging out. June, July, we're gone pretty much for all of July, all of August. We're on our way back. So now we go on leave prior to the deployment. But now things got sped up because, what happened for 9/11. They recalled everybody that was on leave. Some people didn't even get to go on leave. Some people were going on leave to be with their families because their wives were getting ready to give birth and stuff like that. So that was a really crazy time. But that's basically how life on the ship was. And then, if you don't live on the ship when you're in home port, you live out in town, you go home. But if you can't afford to live out in town, you basically staying on the ship like if you were staying at a barracks.
Really? I seriously, I did not know that. So like when you were at home station, we'll call it Norfolk, home port, you were like living on the ship. Like that was, wow.
Yeah. My private space was a coffin, probably about, I don't know, maybe 12 inches. And then I had a locker underneath that. I'd lift up my bed, or we called it a rack, right? Lift up my rack. I've got my locker space here. And then I had either a stand-up locker and a small locker. And that was it. That was it, man. I had some curtains to cover my ass up for the privacy factor. But other than that, there was nothing private about it, man.
Wow. What were some of the other things on the ship? Like, what'd you do? Like, so when in your downtime, like, what are some things you did? Like, what was that like?
Oh, that was, man, shit was boring, man. It was really boring. Because when I first got there, I didn't have a car. So I had saved up some money to buy a vehicle. And after that, I was off the ship as much as I possibly could. Yeah. But prior to that, they got lounges. They have MWR stuff on there.
Yeah.
That you can access. It's probably a lot better now than when I first came in. We had like one computer to every department. And then over time, like, more computers start coming in and people had access to those things because Facebook was a big thing. eBay, man, I remember people just sitting on eBay buying stuff while deployed. They had that deployment money.
Oh, they were like the Amazon OGs, man.
Yeah.
eBay was, man. You were in at an interesting time. You saw a lot of transition because from the late 90s and going through, 9/11 and experiencing that, but also all the access to enhanced communications and computers. I mean, it was, I'm not saying we're in a lull period from like the mid 70s to the 90s. I'm not a sociologist, but like it was pretty much a rinse and repeat sort of experience. I would imagine if I had to take a general post Vietnam to pre 9/11 was a pretty, I would say for those 20 plus years or whatever, it was like, all right, it's more of the same. Yeah. Whereas from the late 90s, and you did 24 years. So that was what year did you get out?
I got out in 21.
21. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So I talk about a little bit about that. Like if you could, so if the current Chris were to go back to the Chris just going into the Navy, what would you tell him? Like, how would you prepare that Chris? Like, all right, take that Asvab again, in 12th grade or whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's the same thing. I did the same exact. I got the old school Asvab. Like it literally is like on the carbon copy, like Post-it note. Like it's crazy. Like it's in my digital file. Anyway, now it's in my digital files. That's
the
like
Scantron sheet.
Dude, it was yeah. So what would the current Chris say to the then Chris just going in and to help you deal and manage with all that you've experienced?
Like pre-military Chris?
Or just like hey,
like 12th grade Chris getting ready to try to figure out his life.
Yeah, and you know what? You bring up a good 12th grade because I got to read something here in a little bit. But yeah, what would the now Chris say to the then Chris just going in and just like, all right, I made the decision. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Oh, man, that's such a great question, man. Like, I have this conversation by myself often, like, God, Lee, what would I tell myself back in the day, man? And it probably, like, I think we touched on it we touched on it prior to, getting online. It was like, dude, not so much take yourself a little more seriously, but like make an effort to actually do what you want to do. Whatever that may be. If that Chris really wanted to go into the service, because I'm gonna be honest with you, man, that was not the number one thing on my list to do.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things, and I have this conversation with my brother often, my younger brother, and I tell him, I'm like, it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to school, hang out with my friends, and smoke weed, and mess with girls, and have a job. Like, what job? Like, it didn't even matter. I would have worked at a freaking Subway for all that.
Yeah.
But something, I didn't want to be held down by the military, and I didn't know much about it. Just
Yeah.
what the recruiter told me. So, whatever it is, just focus on that. Don't half-ass the shit.
Yeah.
Don't half-ass the shit. Go all the way in. Invest in yourself. Like, I do that now. Like, I read books more than I have in my life. When I was on active duty, I was reading some leadership books by John Maxwell, because he was like the popular name at the time that I was familiar with, that I'd heard someone else kind of pass
Oh,
that
dude,
down to me.
you mind if I drop a Maxwell quote, man?
Go ahead, man.
When I went to NCO Academy, I that's when I first got introduced to Maxwell, and it was one of the class modules where we talk about leadership, and the quote that stuck with me is, "A good leader knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way." Boom, like Matt, has stuck with me. So, I just had to share that because that's pretty awesome. That you, honestly, even before you said it, I was like, man, I'd be pretty cool if he says Maxwell. I'm not just saying that, like, because same thing, man. So yeah. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah. So, and that's awesome, man. Like I said, I'd heard the name pop up somewhere, and then I started kind of following him on YouTube later on in my career.
Yeah.
Once I got into that position of leadership, I was like, well, I'm here now. So what do I do? How do I get better at this shit? Because from the beginning of my career, I had basically been freestyling.
Yeah.
But my chain of command had confidence in me that I could actually lead people. So I've been leading people since, small groups of people since I'm E3.
Oh man, you're hitting on some really like awesome stuff. Like my mind's all over the place. I'm a little like a pinball machine right now, because I want to address this, and I want to hear more.
Yeah.
But I want to. So you bring up something like really interesting, like what at some point in hindsight, like what would the current Chris say to the then Chris, right? And we could all go down all sorts of rabbit holes with that, right? But what I just heard is at some point you acknowledged, and that's what this is all about, acknowledge to action, right? You acknowledged at some point, whether it was through mentorship, whether it was through an experience, I don't know, where he's like, all right, I got to take my shit more seriously. Like I got to, acknowledge this. I believe in myself, and I want to do things a little bit better, right? Is that fair to say? So talk about that. Like how would you kind of describe that moment of acknowledgement? And it probably wasn't like, I acknowledge, therefore I'm going to it wasn't that robotic, I imagine. it was over.
No.
It just started, it put things in motion, right? And then, so yeah, talk about the power of acknowledgement. Now that in hindsight, you could look back, like, all right, I acknowledge this about me right now, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I can almost tell you exactly when I had that kind of epiphany, if you may. And it was probably, like I said, I was, I had been already in charge of some people while I was on the ship when I was at E3. Once I took the advancement exam and became an E4, third class petty officer, I had gotten involved with a woman, and at that point I was kind of like, yo, I need to get my shit together. Like, I'm kind of playing it right now. I'm hanging out with randoms and doing whatever, having fun. You know what I mean? I was having a good time. And then she got pregnant. So the no shit lamp came on, and it was like, yeah, I got to take this shit seriously, because I can do this job. And now I'm learning how to do it better. So I just need to actually apply myself and get with people that I know that are here to help me. And I couldn't identify those people when I was just bullshitting around, not taking it
Yeah.
seriously. You know what I mean? Because for the Navy, it's a it was the performance evaluations, and then you had to take an advancement exam. So I was good on the performance evaluations, and I took the test, and I got promoted. So I was kind of like not taking things seriously and just doing my thing. I wasn't arrogant. It was like I had a lot of confidence doing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, finding out that I'm going to be a father kind of took me to that next level. It was like, all right, well, I can't play like this the whole time. So that's kind of what set things in motion for me, and just aligning myself with the upper chain of command. Like my chief, the guy that I worked for, one of them at the time, he was like, I don't want to say he was like a father figure, but he was basically like a father figure to me.
Yeah.
And he treated me as such, like a son would treat, a father would treat a son, like, firm, fair, and still getting my ass if I messed up. But at the same time, he wasn't going to sit there and pat me on the back in public and praise me in public. He kind of pulled me to the side and tell me like, listen, man, you did a good job here. Don't let that shit go to your head.
Yeah.
Don't ever let that shit go to your head. And that really resonated with me. And I kind of did the same, like part of my leadership style was that way too. Like I would I did a little bit differently. Like I would actually acknowledge my people in public and, point out the things that they did as opposed to his style. He was more like he gonna yell at you in public and be like, rah, 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 and then pull you to the side and be like, you did good, but you know what I'm saying? Don't let that shit go to your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, all right, I didn't know I did good, but all right.
Yeah. It was like that. I heard a saying once, like praise in public, criticize in private, but the opposite,
chastise. Praise in public and chastise in private. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless someone's about to go do something so ridiculous that's going to cause harm to themselves or whatever. But generally speaking, like you're like, hey, good job, and then you pull them and you rip somebody a new one in private. So, dude, that's interesting, man, because sometimes circumstances can shape our, give us a new approach and for us to acknowledge, all right, this is where meet ourselves where we're at in that moment, right? Whether it's outside of a professional experience or and this thing's personal. It's like, but it was a combination of things. You were getting some momentum in the Navy. Like you said, that confidence was kicking in. You were getting that momentum there. And then you found out you were becoming a father, and then it just came together in that moment. Like, all right. And then the rest is history. Not that it ends there, but it's like, man, that I imagine what I'm hearing and what I'm sensing is then that gave you a whole new like vision and a trajectory as far as like how you were going to proceed.
Yeah, for sure. Cause once like I said, once I figured that out, it was like, yep, I need to take this more seriously. I need to do things that I know that are going to put me in a better position to succeed. And that's basically what it was. I learned more about my job. I learned the technical side. I learned the administrative side, the things that I needed to learn. Was I good at all of it? No, absolutely not. I was good at most of it. And if I wasn't good at something, I seeked help. And I think that that's what a lot of people actually, was part of the reason why they even talked to me was because I would come to them for help and say, hey, can you help me out with this shit? So I attracted a lot of people to me because I would pick their brains and people like that shit, man. I don't care who you are. You ask me something and that I know about this shit, I'm going to talk about it for hours. And people like talking about what they know. And honestly, I hear it all the time. It's like, you can continue to be a good learner by teaching someone else. what you know. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm teaching you something, that's making me a better teacher, but at the same time, I'm learning because the stuff that I know, it's being reiterated.
Yeah.
And I'm passing it down to you. So it keeps it fresh in my mind. And now you're learning it.
There's so much to that. And I don't know if I'm going to get the right terminology right, but like you said, generally speaking, I think people like to help people. You know what I mean? And that's different. That means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Just, how you help somebody, like your style, what you bring to the table, then, the person next to you not going to mirror that, but they're going to have their own version of helping somebody out. Right. And then we hear it all the time. I think it's dopamine, where it's like an adrenaline boost or whatever. I'm probably screwing it up, but like you get that sense of euphoric, like, man, I helped this person to be better, to get better, or to help understand something. And in return, the return on investment in that is, I don't think you could scale it. It's hard to put metric. I was like, well, I helped 5 people today and it helped me on my happy meter by this. You know what I mean? It just, but it does do something with you because it reinforces what, that chief you said, who's like a father figure to you, like that experience was good for him. That was good for him, good for you. And then you in turn did it your way in your fashion all the way for 24 years. So there's something to be said, those moments in time, man. Cause I know I have a couple of those experiences where I look back, I'm like, who knows what I would have done if it was not for that experience. I could say that now,
right?
About particular, there's a handful of experiences where like, man, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
In the moment, you're not like, oh yeah, this was a game changer. Thanks for that. It's just like you reflect on it and you look back on it, it's like, damn, that really did something for me. You know what I mean? And it leads you to other things, helping other people and whatnot. So, dude, that's awesome, man. That's what I love about this connect. One, dude, we go way back. We go all the way back to like, 92, whenever I got back to Liberty in 10th grade, because I had a short break in between the middle school I went to. Anyway,
that was like 94 because I started Liberty in 94, I think. Yeah.
Did you got there in 10th grade too?
Yeah.
So, hey, a shout out to Liberty High School in 97, right?
Yo.
I got to
Liberty High School, baby.
Dude, so I got a couple more questions because there's some, if I'm curious about this, I know all of the listeners may have some of the same curiosities, but before I do, I want to read something, man. I want to, like I said, just reaching out to you to reconnect like this, it means a heck of a lot to me. And just to hear your journey, hear your experience. But I want to read something. This is back in the day. Now yearbooks, who knows? They're all digital and whatnot. But remember we had, dude, well, I don't know, because I don't have the releases for all the people in the picture. So you know. But dude, Gary, a.k.a. Brew, right? Gary. Wait. No, but like, remember they gave us this. You take the sticker off and you put it in your respective yearbook, right? That's how we wrote the stuff. So I'm going to read this here, man, because I went in August as well. I left for the Air Force August 12th. I did the delayed enlistment. So around March, I knew I was going. Like I showed up to MEPS. I said, yeah, Air Force. I want to work outside. I want to work on an aircraft. I want to work with my hands. I got what I asked for. It was a good experience. The rest is history, right? But I remember us talking in a number of ways because, you ended up going to the Navy. I know I talked to a few recruiters, but honestly, I just ended up going to the Air Force because it was the line of sight. I'd walk home that way and the recruiter's right there. And I had family members too. I don't want to, but it was just like, I think it was the last person I talked to, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do
sort
it.
of thing. But I remember us having some of those conversations as what a 17-year-old did. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to say to my boy Benko, it's been a long trip and it doesn't stop here. Life just starts, Benko. We didn't hang out much this year, but it was fun when we played football. But we're chill this summer before we get shipped the fuck out of this bitch. Dude, this is one of my favorites. I'm not saying this because we're talking, but this is one of my favorites, man. And he wrote, take care of yourself. You're a cool, crazy dude. Keep in touch. And then this was old school. We had the phone numbers even before the area code, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you signed off, Chris Hernandez, and I was like, man, we connected because we knew we were going to do something. We were going on to go into the military and start our journey in our own ways.
Yeah.
And then we're coming back 25, 26 plus years later, readdressing that and whatnot. So I wanted to share that, man, because I had a dig for this yearbook. I did it this morning. It's in a banker's box. And I'm going to keep it out on my shelf now, but I wanted to share that with you. So, because
that's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
That's a throwback right there, dude. Like,
yeah, it is.
When you were reading it, bro, I just imagined myself writing that shit.
Yeah.
No shit, dude.
You had nice penmanship too, man. I gotta give it to you. I don't know if they teach cursive anymore. Dude, you have some nice.
That's that New York shit, bro. Bro, that's that New York shit. They taught me how to write like that in New York City when I was going to school there. Yo, most people to this day, they're like, dude, you got some nice handwriting. I'm like, oh, where? I don't think nothing of it. I still write in cursive.
Dude, that's something, man. You should have your own font with Microsoft Word or whatever, like Chris Hernandez.
That's just probably taken, man.
Yeah, no, man. But I share that with you because it means a heck of a lot to me. But also too, we acknowledge and we identified something at an age, like I said, and we joke around a little bit, like you said, most of the, like you said, most of them cats taking the Asvab were like, whatever, man, I'm just getting out of English 101 for the day or whatever. And I'm not saying that wasn't part of my mindset, but I took it, and then like you, I just had just enough to get in and figure it out. I had just enough of a score to get into maintenance, AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code.
Yeah.
And then I ended up taking it again later in my career to cross train and to do what I ended up doing. But yeah, man, we acknowledge something like that, and I think about the term acknowledge a lot, and in the Air Force world, in our operational checklist, acknowledge is a critical part of that. So operationally, I think about it from that perspective. But now where I'm at, and we're reconnecting, and I'm talking to other veterans and stuff like that. Like the power of acknowledgement is so profound in a lot of different ways, and empowering. And here we experienced right around the same time, because we played football, and like I said, we ended up going to the military. Recruiters weren't banging down our door. It was just for me, it was a structure. I'll say for me, like it was just something to do. It was structure. And the same thing applied for me for the military. I just wanted to continue. I wanted an extension of that structure to figure things out, because organized sports helped me figure things out and in certain ways. And then the military did that. Can you talk a little bit about that, how maybe that possibly influenced you? Because like I said, I can't recall exactly, all the conversations we had, during our senior year, but it was enough to where it motivated us to do what we did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it was like, I really didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan at all of, at least not a set plan. I had thoughts and ideas of what I wanted to do, but I didn't have a plan. Most of them cats that we went to school with, they were already going to they were signed up for college, and, they were going to do their thing. And I was kind of like, we can't afford for me to go to college. That's when I was like, I'm going to do the Allentown Business School, $50 application. And, they're taking Joe shit to ragman and anybody that signs up, to be a part of their facility. They're just there for the check. They don't, not that they didn't care about their students or whatever, but now knowing what I know, it's like, it's a lot of these places is just a money grab. Because if there's any longevity to them, they would still be around.
Exactly. I was just thinking that, like, if their ethos and their integrity was in line, they'd be there,
right?
And they're not, and that says something.
Yeah. So, when even when I first came in, I was like, nah, I'm getting out. 4 years and I'm done. That was my contract. 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'm done. Then like I said, I got promoted within that 4 years. I was in line for another promotion, got the girlfriend pregnant at the time, and And it was like, well, shit, I can't just get out because I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan prior to getting out. You know, I had my exit in my head. It was like 4 years, I'm done. But what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I had nothing. I had nothing.
So,
So that really, that really started the hamster rolling upstairs. And I was like, well, I got to re-enlist for another 4 or whatever. See where this goes. See what happens here. So, and then the next 4, by that time I'm at 8 years, and it's like, well, I'm almost to 10. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. You got good momentum going.
It just kept going, man.
So after that first enlistment into your second enlistment, you were a boatsman mate, right? And initially, was that your career throughout your Navy? How did that change when you started making NCO rank and E5 and above and all that? How talk a little bit about how your experience and your career evolved over the course of 24 years.
Okay, got you. So after I got done with that first duty station, I went to recruiting duty.
Okay.
So on recruiting duty, I did about, I want to say 3 years and some change maybe. So I left recruiting duty. I got there as an E5. I ended up leaving that duty station. Recruiting was fun, by the way. I don't know if you ever had a chance to do any recruiting.
No, I never had that experience.
I mean, it'll for anyone that's, I don't think there's going to be anyone that's going to be watching this that's going to be joining, but if they are, or if they're already in, man, I would say give recruiting a try. I don't know if it's the same that it was before when I was recruiting, because I got a buddy that's recruiting now. He's like, yo, this shit's crazy. But, if we got time, we can talk about that. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I leave recruiting as an E6, and now I'm getting to my next duty station. I've never done E6 shit. So I get here and, immediately thrown into a group where it's like, oh, these are the people, have at it. So now it's like, again, I'm familiar with the leadership part of it and the administrative side, but now it's like, all right, so I'm no longer an E5, which is kind of like the middleman between E4 and E6. Yeah. Like in every aspect, the E4 is kind of like expected to do shit, but the E5 needs to make sure that he's doing the shit. And now the E6 is expected to make sure that the E5 is getting shit done.
Yep.
But all the other shit, like he's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, as the E6 for me, it was, I couldn't be that mobile supervisor without sacrificing somewhere else in that position. Like if I was going to be out on deck all day, then my administrative work is going to suffer.
Gotcha. You
get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
So I had to be really diverse and appoint, delegate the people that I come to know that worked for me. I had to. It was like, all right, I need to get to know these people.
You got to go from, like, generally speaking, you go from being a doer, E5, E4, E5 are doers. E6, you enter in that territory of being a delegator, doer to delegator. Yeah. That's a tough transition because you're so programmed and conditioned or whatever,
and
to
young.
to
I
do.
was still young.
And young.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you went from, and then it's not my experience, but like you go from recruiting, which is a whole different beast of itself. So you didn't have, it sounds like you didn't have that, like that transition that say an everyday, not an everyday, but like a standard E5 to E6 person would get if they would have been in that.
Right. That's exactly right. Because I didn't have, when I was on recruiting duty, I didn't have a group of people to lead. Yeah. I was, it was basically independent duty. So I had to make phone calls, make appointments, put people in the Navy.
Yeah.
The guy that I worked for, he was the one that was in charge of us, and he made sure that things were getting done. I never got into that position. So as an E5 in that environment, it was, I don't want to say detrimental, because what I learned at that point in time is helping me now. Yeah. In things that I want to do, from this point on into the future. with sales and marketing and things like that, because I had to learn that in order to be a recruiter. So in that aspect, it helped me out. But in the leadership aspect, it kind of was detrimental to my career at that time, because now I'm getting essentially thrown into the fire of being a leader to a whole new group of people that I don't know. I'm taking over for somebody that was there that had already implemented their, ideals and things that group was already used to. And I'm sure as much time as you served, that most people don't like change.
No,
at least not rapid change.
And most will like test you too. That maybe not like
there's a resistance.
There's a resistance, and it's like a subconscious, and I'll say sometimes passive aggressive test.
Yeah.
And because it's a natural to resist. Most are going to resist. I get it. No, it's I could only imagine what that's like, and I'm
that was tough.
Because wow.
Because and also it was tougher for the group that I was in charge of. It was tougher for me, in my opinion, because I had senior E5s. Like, there were guys that had more time than I had as E5s, and I was an E6 with less time in service. So those dudes were kind of like, look at this guy, this young guy coming in here, like,
so who do you think he is?
Right, right. So they made things a little bit harder, and I tried to utilize them in a way that, like, I needed to use them, because I needed their knowledge, I needed their expertise in the things in day-to-day operations, because I wasn't familiar with how the technical side of that job went, because it was different for me. I was a BOSIS mate still, but it was a different job that I was doing. So,
gotcha.
So I and I told those guys, I was like, listen, man, if you think I'm coming in here to be egotistical and try to take over something that I have no business taking over, well, I'll tell you what, I'm in charge. And you could ride this train if you want, but if you don't, then I'm gonna need you to, step over to the side and let somebody else take over.
Yeah.
And they didn't receive that well. I tried to be as professional as I could, but then, there was a point where I just had to, I had to get unprofessional.
I got you. Yeah.
Close the door in the office and be like, yo, all right, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Let's figure something out, because it's about to get ugly.
And it's real tough to have those. I think most people don't look forward to having those conversations. Oh, let's do this, and there are some people who are more contentious than not, generally speaking. But I think generally speaking, I don't think people like or welcome confrontation like that. And it's a combination of them not knowing, them not understanding, them not having the tools in their toolbox to prevent conflict, but then. I'll say I'm of the mindset I work my ass off to prevent conflict, but I don't avoid it. And then so like, but there's a skill set involved in that. It's like, all right, here it is. How are we going to do this without throwing chairs and just getting all gangster on each other?
Right.
There's a tactful way to do it, but without sugarcoating it too.
Right. Right. That was hard, man. It was hard for them. And then, come to find out, it was people that were on their way out.
Yeah.
So
it had really nothing to do with you. It wasn't about Chris Hernandez. It was about this situation that they were in. Yep.
Yeah. It was higher tenure for some of them cats. They're just moving on, they're getting out, and that kind of situation. So I had to learn to not so much swallow my pride, but to be tactful without throwing hands, because I was young still, man, and I'm trying to not lose my career.
Yeah.
Over some ignorant ass people that just wanted to feel like they were in charge. Like, that's not how this works. Like, you want to be in charge, you got to move up. You can't just sit stale in the same position you in.
Yeah.
Because clearly you're not getting anything done.
Well,
so that was tough.
You had some good mentorship, because that set you up because you dealt with it and then you moved on, to accomplish all the other things you did that I know you did.
Yeah, because I found the people that I needed to be in those positions. Once I figured out what the riffraff was, it was like, nope, I need this guy here. But I don't want to make that sound easy. It was a transition to that too, because I had to get to know everybody. So I made that one of my things. Like wherever I went, and I was going to be in a position of leadership or just getting there, and there's somebody else that's in charge, and I'm just kind of like co-piloting stuff. I want to get to know everybody that's there. So, it was like an in-doc, just about every time. So I'm sitting somebody down, I'm sitting a sailor down, and I'm like, all right, tell me who you are, where you from, why are you here, why'd you join the Navy? And with that little bit of information, like I can already tell if a kid was, motivated to be there, or just was there because they had no other option, or they really wanted to do something. They wanted to help their family members back home, or what their motivation was for being there. Like just a little bit of information, you find out about the people that you have in your group, and do it what you need to. But that's one of the ways that I made things work. I just, even if I wrote 2 or 3 things down, I could come back like, when's your birthday? I'm writing that shit down.
Yeah.
Not everybody got that treatment, but hell, whoever I sat down with, I try to keep it the same across the board. But there were just some things about some people that just stood out, and it was like, all right, I need to get to dig a little bit more into this person's background, like find out what motivates them, if they were difficult to deal with. That's just the challenges of leadership, man. At least that was my experience. And that's how I was able to deal with that stuff.
Man, these conversations could go in so many different great directions. Because I know, like, before we hit record, we're going to talk about transition, embracing change. But here we are, like a focal point has been leadership. And let's just stay with it, because it is what it is, and it feels right to talk about that, because seems like that was a very important aspect of your career in the military, is learning leadership, embracing it, and applying it, right? And I think for most, that's not an easy journey for anybody. I don't care how good they make it look or how they make it sound in hindsight. It is, there's a lot of trials and tribulations with that. And so you had that experience coming off of recruiter duty, and then you did that for X time. And then where did it go from there? Like, how did that influence your career? Because you retired with what was your final rank in the Navy?
I ended up as a chief petty officer. So E7.
E7. Okay. So you worked your way up to the, do they call that's senior NCO ranks, right? In the Navy, do they? Yeah. So
we don't call it that. That's like, well, everybody else does besides us.
Yeah. It's one of the few things the Air Force doesn't do different. I always joke that they're AFSC, specialty code, but so what is it called when you get to the E7 ranks and above?
Chiefs, man. That's
Chiefs. Okay, that's what it is.
Chiefs.
Oh, wow.
We got chiefs, we got super chiefs, and then the farthest you can get is master chief petty officer of the Navy. But we got chiefs and super chiefs. So super chiefs are E8s and 9s.
Okay.
But yeah, that was it. And it's, for anyone that's ever been in the Navy and has made it to that rank, that it was something that I had strived to be from the moment I decided to make it a career.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people would be like, "Oh, you need to put in an officer's package, and you need to," because I had a lot of people that really looked out for me and wanted to see me succeed. Like I was telling you before, like, some people with a lot of credibility in throughout the Navy. And the thing for me was, I wanted to get, it was just personal. Like, I needed to prove to myself that I can make it, kind of thing. And I finally ended up making it. I went through some hardships to get there. And there was times where people were like, "Oh, you ain't never gonna make it, man. You know, your career path, your career funnel, your career ladder, the way it's going, it's like, you know, you ain't never gonna make it." So, you know, there was a point where I was like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing and, you know, hope for the best, put it in God's hands and let it do what it do. But I never stopped being myself. I never stopped being me, doing the things that that I started doing. I just continued to evolve and learn and continue to look for those people that I needed in my corner to mentor me. Cause like I always wanted that. It was just something about it. Like, yo, these dudes are in khakis, right? Cause that's one of the things that the Navy stands out for, them khakis. I don't know if they still do the half uniform. I'm not really too involved in uniform codes anymore, but you know, for me, it was, you know, the khakis was an important part of my growth, you know, in leadership. So I had some people that believed in me, man, and they told me that. I was like, well, I can't disappoint this cat. I can't let this person down. I need to get to the next level, you know. So
your khaki. When do you get khakis? Is that like a rank thing?
Once you make it to the E7 level,
that's okay.
Or the officers for the Navy wear khakis. The khaki uniform.
Got you. So officers or E7 and above.
Mm-hmm.
Where they, I got you. I'm tracking. I had no idea. I'll be honest, man. Like,
yeah, sorry about that,
man. No. That's what this is about. I like this, you know, because I like having those moments where like, oh wow. I'll be honest with you, man. I don't think I'll ever fully understand Navy rank because I see, whether it's in the khakis or in the full, like I just see stripes and eagles, and I'm like, is it officer? Is it enlisted? It is. It looks cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it, but I'm like, dang, they got like stripes on their sleeve. They got an eagle here, and then they got stuff here, and then they got, you know. I'm trying to look for the, you know, enlisted rank or officer rank. I never. That's more in the formal dress, you know.
Yeah. But, that's just one of those things that, you know, made the Navy stand out, and I think that was the purpose of that uniform kind of change right there.
No,
to separate that.
That's pretty cool. So again, you know, you look back on it, and here we are talking like 24 years. It seems to go by like that. You look back on it, it's like, dang, because you've been out 3-4 years now, and it's like, we didn't even get into all the places you went to, and how many deployments do you have total?
I did about 7 deployments, and like the last 2 that I did, they were like half deployments because I was going for like 3 months at a time. So like I said, I went to the Med a few times, and you know, I had a stop in Kuwait. I did 2 deployments to Djibouti, Africa, which is one of the hottest places on the planet. I called it, like, no offense to anybody, but it was like as hot as the devil's asshole out that mug, man.
Yeah.
And like Kuwait was pretty hot too, but you know, and then I ventured off into a place called the UAE, and I was like, oh my God, it's hot out there.
Yeah, well, it's humid out there. The UAE, because it's heat meets, it's a whole different. It's like, it's like a hot, sweaty oven. Yeah. Wow. So 7 deployments, and I imagine like, and I know in the Air Force there's deployments and there's TDYs. Like TDYs are like you go to Germany or whatnot and stuff like that. But how many other places? So how does the Navy classify deployment versus a temporary duty assignment, or, you know, going to Singapore? I don't know. I'm just curious. Or is it always deployment? It's either you're deployed or you're home station. Is that how it's classified?
Well, home port for somebody could be they, you know, they go out to Japan and they're stationed in Japan for 2-3 years.
I got you. Okay.
So I mean, essentially, it's the same thing.
Okay.
All
right.
Because I had some buddies that they love Japan, man. They stayed there for like most of their career, or they'd go to California if they had to leave Japan, and then they're back like 3-4 years later. So Japan, I hear, was a great place, man. I never went, so.
Yeah. Oh no. It's interesting how you hear how some people just gravitate towards certain environments and
Yeah.
experiences and all that too. So, well, were you assigned to a ship the whole time, or like how what were some of the other duty stations you were at?
No, I quickly understood that I didn't want to be on a ship for, a 20-year enlistment. So I went from the ship, I went on recruiting duty, like I told you. That was my second duty station, and I did that in Virginia Beach. And then from Virginia Beach, I went to Beachmaster unit, and basically what that was we were transporting Marines from the ship to the beach. We were offloading their vehicles and personnel from the ship to the beach, kind of like LCACs. Are you familiar with LCACs? Like those hovercrafts?
Oh, okay. I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were part of that detachment as well. They were separate commands, but we did the same. We did similar jobs. We packed Marines up, sent them to the beach. Then when it's time for Marines to come back to the ship, we pick them up, put them on the ship. So I was attached to a ship at those times. From there, then I went to a small boat unit. I did basically harbor security, and that's where I found myself in Djibouti, Africa, UAE, Kuwait for a brief stop. Then after that, I did instructor duty, and I was teaching basic seamanship skills. I was teaching small boat, teaching students how to drive small boats and underway replenishment. When we were refueling ships out at sea. So another ship comes up side by side, and we connect hoses. One ship gives the other ship fuel, or not just fuel, but stores and supplies.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went back to the security place because I'm gonna be honest with you, the extra pay that was being put out there for that duty, when you deployed, like the per diem was at that time was fairly good. And
Yeah.
I try to hop on that bus before retirement, but it was something that I wasn't able to do. I was able to go on those short deployments, but I couldn't go on the long deployments because at that time my wife was pregnant with my twins.
Okay.
And that was something that, the command worked with me at that time. So I was very grateful that they gave me the opportunity to still be able to do my job and stay home and take care of my wife. She was a high risk pregnancy from the beginning. So
Yeah.
I thank the Lord that there was no complications and everything went smooth with that. And that's where I finished, man. I finished my career in Virginia. I started in Virginia. I finished in Virginia.
How about that? I just want to point out, like, it's nice to hear how they acknowledge, like, your supervision, your command supported you with that, like, because that, again, in the moment, sometimes you don't realize how impactful that is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And just think about everything you talked about today, and how you've utilized. This podcast is about the acknowledge to action sort of mindset, right? And you've been doing it. We've been doing it for a long time. We just maybe not have had a title to it or a classification for it. But man, there's so much to unpack here today as far as how you acknowledge those things within yourself and then took action on it. I think that's a fair way to kind of like summarize, because there's so many things we could have talked about. I mean, we just skimmed this. We barely, in my opinion, we just barely skimmed the surface as far as, I mean, we could have went down so many good rabbit holes to talk about leadership, and we didn't even talk about transition and how that's been. But honestly, we're going to do round 2 when you want, so we could pick up where we leave off today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to always I'm extending to you always an invite here. We could co-host and just kind of, I have a lot of thought. You talking about the hamster wheel? My hamster wheel's
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
And how do you envision some of the things we talked about before we went live and hot and hit record? And I know we've touched upon like acknowledge and stuff like that in action, but how do you envision incorporating these principles now? Like, so the power of acknowledgement, taking you through the sequence of action into your journey where you're at now, moving forward, and what message would you like to share to our listeners as they navigate their own paths, wherever they are? They could be they could be that 6-year person who's on the fence about, do I want to enlist? Or they could just be getting out. They could just be any number. Who knows where folks are at in their own journey. But wherever they are on their paths, both within the military or wherever they are, what advice do you have for them?
Well, I would start with saying to continue to educate themselves, whether it be in their professional job or personally. Educate themselves as much as they can in various aspects, like not just the job, like what all comes with the job, depending on what position you're in. But at some point, the longer you stay, you're going to be in a leadership position. So familiarize yourself with the people that you work for. Get to know them. I'm not telling you to develop a personal relationship with anyone. Pick their brain, like, hey, how would you handle a situation like this? How would you handle it? Because we all have, I'm certain that you've had some experiences where you've had to reach out to a superior, maybe the next pay grade, or maybe even a coworker, a peer, and be like, hey, man, this is a unique situation for me. Have you ever blah, blah, blah? Yeah. And they might give you some insight on something that you never even thought of. So you might have a junior person that could possibly give you a different perspective on something that you never even, you wouldn't even think about asking this person, but they just happen to be in the room and you're like, so what's your idea? What are your thoughts on this? And they blurt out some shit. You're either going to be like, nah, we ain't doing that. Or you're going to be like, you know what? Let's holster that one and we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Because there might be something there.
You put it in the toolbox of ideas and options and action.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing is like, be curious and ask questions, but doing it in a tactful, respectful, sort of professional way. And I want to highlight what you said, and I've been thinking about it as I've been listening and we've been talking here. And I think it's really like incredibly impactful how you ask those open-ended questions, like what brought you to the Navy, how you here, and help people understand their why. Or that may be the first time in their career that they've been asked that, because so many times, and I, through what you just said, like when people come up to you, like, you should fill in the blank, or why aren't you doing this? It's like, what, man, why don't you ask me just what I want? Have you ever thought about that approach? You know what I mean? And it goes such a long way, because then it's like, damn, the power of open-ended questions can help build those rapports and helps you become a more dialed in individual, right? Like you said, you're not going to have them all figured out. You're not going to have you're not going to hit the bullseye mark. Right. You're not even going to hit the target. Some days, but at least, you have that rapport and you have that baseline. So that's my takeaway from this relatively short conversation we had to summarize 24 years, because I knew going into like some of these, it is pretty amazing what you could unpack in an hour over 24 years. But we're just getting warmed up here, man.
I'm sure we can go on for hours, dude. But
no,
real quick before I forget, that that little tactic that I had, that came to me from recruiting duty. Like those open-ended questions and just probing and trying to find out, getting to the meat and potatoes. That came to me from recruiting duty, but it was reinforced by some of the leaders that I worked with. Like when they hit me with that, hey, come here, man, introduce yourself. I want to talk to you. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And it'll be like one of the people I work for, they're called bosuns. They're like the technical experts of our rating and the senior guy. So Bosun pulls me in his office. All right, tell me a little bit about yourself. And it's like, where do I even start? Yes, sir. You know, he closed the door. He's like, just relax, man. Let your head down. And, you know, we can still keep it professional, but let me know a little bit about yourself. And that just continued to reinforce that particular thing that I would do. That it yields results. Whether you find out if that person is a piece of shit or they have potential to be something better, you're going to figure that out by your assessment, by asking those questions. So that was just one of those things that it stuck with me, man. And it still does. Like I talked to my son. I told you my son's 20, he's 24 now. Every time I talk to him, I'm sitting him down and I'm like, all right, just relax, man. I want to ask you some questions. And he's just like,
yeah.
Oh, like, relax, dude, relax. So
yeah. No, and this that technique, strategy, professionalism is obviously a critical part in military and professional development, right? In the military itself, but it could be applied to so many different things. And that, like I said, I promise you, we're gonna have round two. We're gonna next episode we're talking about transition and how you applied that. So to all of our listeners, know that there's more to follow with that, because I mean, I want to pull back the layers on that, because we just talked about acknowledge, but we didn't even talk about how to accept the process, plan to take action, because that's the acknowledge to action mindset is acknowledge, accept, process, plan, action. And there's nothing profound about that. That's not something I just woke up and had this aha moment. I mean, that comes from the OODA loop, which is very military based: observe, orient, decide, act. There's different variations of it, but to speak to like technique and your supervisor and your leadership technique, that was Chris's technique. Open-ended question. That was your thing. But it was based off objective content that was instilled in you, whether it's through mentorship or through formal, leadership development training, right? And you made it your own. And that's just kind of what I did here with Acknowledge Actions. Like I took all the, the different schools of thought that I've experienced my own. Like, hey man, this is what makes sense to me. And
right.
And the power of acknowledgement. And I think when you do that, man, there's so much you could do. Like going back to 10th or 11th grade when we decided to take the Asvab, we acknowledged we just wanted to get out of class, right?
Yeah.
But it led to, I mean, who knew where it was going to lead us to?
Exactly.
So many different action items, man. So big shout out, man. It's so good to see you, man. I can't. And so, I mean, everyone I connect with means a lot, but this was extra special because this has been so overdue. I how we reflect on things and whatnot, but I knew we went in right around the same time, and we had kind of similar careers and years of history, military service. So yeah, man, I look forward to staying connected with you, having you on here, in this, formal sort of capacity. It's not formal, it's laid back. Like you said, it's just, we'll just be ourselves, invite other people on. So yeah, man. Yeah, I can't thank you enough.
Yo, like I said earlier, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate the invite, and I look forward to coming back, man. Because I said, man, I know we can keep peeling this onion all the way down to that little bulb in the middle of it.
That we're gonna get to the core of that. We are, but it won't be. It's gonna be sooner than later this time around. You know what I mean? And then so as we wrap things up, I don't think we really talked about them. I know through emails, but every time I have a guest on the show, I ask them to dedicate a song to the Acknowledge Action playlist, which is on Spotify. I'm gonna branch off to like Apple Music at some point when I put some effort into that. But what song do you want to dedicate to the Acknowledge Action playlist?
Oh yeah. So the song is called Kingdom by a rock band called Downstate. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them before, but the reason why I like the song was, I follow wrestling, whatever, don't judge me. But Cody Rhodes has this theme song. Cody Rhodes is one of the wrestlers. He's he's grown to be pretty popular the last few years.
Aren't him and The Rock feuding and out now, aren't they?
Him and The Rock are beefing right now. But Cody was like a jobber back in the day, and then he went off and started AEW, All Elite Wrestling, with a couple other guys, and they just, they made it this competitor to the WWE. And now he's come back to WWE and he's fighting for the world championship. He's trying to get the belt. And, it's supposed to be like this whole mushy story about him coming back and finally getting the championship belt. But the guy started from the bottom, left because they weren't valuing him for who he was. His dad was the Dusty Rhodes, famous wrestler from back in the day. And, the guy breaks off, starts his company, competitor to this bigger company, and he leaves. He left his baby to grow on its own with the other people that he started with, comes back, and, now he's fighting for the belt. But that song really resonates with me because you just got to listen to it, man. You got to listen to it. I wish I could break it down a little bit more, but I think it's a pretty good song, and just the words to it, it's like, you know what? It hits it. I don't want to say it hits different. I hate when I hear people say it hits different, but I can definitely, it just resonates with me, man. In the way that I look at my career, like where I came from, like I had no plan. I had no idea. I felt pretty much like not worthless, but I didn't feel valued until I started to put my shit together, get my shit together, and again, grow up and develop, into, I guess, into what it is you looking at right now.
No, I love this. That because every time the song that's dedicated to the song, I think about the conversation I had, and whoever's listening, you listen to it in a different sort of perspective, and therefore it hits a little bit different, right? But in all seriousness, but no, I'm really looking forward to that, and I'll have that on the playlist, man. But yeah, man, I can't thank you enough. I'm gonna have an outro which I always record after our site to kind of like summarize things and just highlight a few things here, man. But Chris, man, until next time, and I promise you it'll be much more sooner than later than it's been, and I look forward to staying connected with you, man.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. I'm here. I'm closer than I ever been before, so I look forward to it as well, bro.
Same here, man. I appreciate you, bro. And we'll get together real soon. All right.
All right, brother.
All right, man.
This concludes episode 7. This was a very special episode for me. It was so great to reconnect with Chris. We started our respective military journeys within the same month and year following graduating Liberty High School in 1997. A shout out to Liberty High School class of 1997. From the challenges of deployments to the power of acknowledgement, Chris's military journey and beyond offers invaluable lessons in personal and professional growth. His emphasis on mentorship, leadership, and the transformative impact of helping others underscores the essence of effective leadership. Through his experiences, Chris reminds us of the importance of reflection, responsibility, and the continual pursuit of growth. These are great lessons to relate to and apply into our own endeavors, embracing the journey of self-discovery and leadership with renewed determination. Once again, a big thank you to Chris Hernandez for sharing his journey with us. I eagerly anticipate staying connected and engaged with you through the Acknowledge to Action podcast and beyond. And as always, remember to embrace the journey. With Acknowledge to Action, wherever you are on your journey, you are not alone. Until next time.